Namaste, one and to all. Today, I am very eager to bring forth before you about the greatest playwright, poet, etc., named William Shakespeare and his works on nature. Let us see the detail. Shakespeare is considered as the most popular playwright of the English literature. His philosophical ideas led the readers to find out the human nature from his literary works in our day-to-day life. Shakespeare is the author of Elizabethan period. In his writings, we find the optimism, truth, pragmatism, straightforwardness, morals, and comic elements. Some of his plays are concerned with the external behavior of men. He has been called an early existentialist. The study will present the vividness and luminosity of Shakespeare writings. William Shakespeare is the most notable and influential author of the various works. He reflects love many of his plays. He is a poet of the human nature. He presented all these themes with the use of a great number of versatile utility which are a bit upper than the general level of normal writing condition. He has given morals with aphorism and impersonality. He also depicts the proper direction to the readers of all ages, deals with different natural aspects. He also deals with the spiritualism of man's life. Shakespeare did not have the sort of extensive humanistic education afforded those of higher social and financial rank than his own family. His education was clearly grounded in the principles of Renaissance humanism. The decidedly humanistic ideals Shakespeare often respects. His plays, particularly with the Hamlet and Julius Caesar, are graded in the race of Renaissance humanism. Literature review. Based on the criticism of Shakespeare, enough critical essays and analysis was published in the shapes of different books and in many literary journals, which are very useful as a supporting material for further study of the researcher. The literary works by William Shakespeare become helpful for the research study. Moreover, the different literary websites of internet are also helpful in this regard. Let us see his methodology. To develop this hypothesis, the primary idea is found from the study of English writings of Shakespeare in the different critical studies of A.C. Broadley, Cliffs, and Dr. Essayne. After the development of hypothesis to prepare the research paper, the planned way will hasten to product the final thesis paper. In fact, the only helpful method will be observation method for this research job. By using this method, the researcher has gone through different literature articles, critical compositions, and websites to find related study materials. In order to be acknowledged in the related topics, we will also collect critical journals from different libraries to have specialized information on both the writers and compose the thesis paper in a moral, credible way. Definition. Human nature refers to the distinguishing characteristics, including the ways of thinking, feeling, and acting, which humans tend to have naturally, independently of the influence of culture. Human nature is, in fact, the psychological and social qualities that characterize humankind, especially in contrast with the other living things. Human nature in Shakespeare's poetry. William Shakespeare was indeed a master of exploring the multiple facets of human nature, from the beauty of his sonnets, the comedy of his hapless protagonists, to the dark and twisted fields of love, betrayal, and war. Without doubt, the exploration of human strengths and weaknesses is the key to the popularity and survival of Shakespeare's literary genius and its applicability across cultures and time. Sonnet 15 references the idea of celestial influence in the growth of humankind, whereon the stars in secret influence comment. This idea of astrological importance is linked to the idea of fate and humans having little control of their destiny, fate. This also gives humans as an excuse for their less than respectable moments. The power of the stars over human action is also linked to the ideas of eternity, which Shakespeare used to infer to the permanence of his written words in Sonnet 18. One in eternal lines, to time thou growest. It denotes the sense of human nature as being an eternal beast, never ending and perhaps never changing. Shakespeare changes tune slightly in his sonnets when he reaches Sonnet 130. Here he emphasizes the more realistic side of human culture and nature, love of someone who is not conventionally beautiful, perhaps even making fun of traditional love poetry of which he has written much, not the most romantic description of a lover. And in some perfume is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks, poet of nature. Shakespeare is above all writers, at least above all modern writers, and the poet of nature, the poet of beauty, the poet that holds up his readers a faithful mirror of the manners and of life. Shakespeare is a poet of nature who faithfully represents human nature in his place. He deals with passions and principles which are common to humanity. He does not merely depict the particular manner and customs of any one country or age. His characters are merely not kings and Romans. They are all above human beings. So, his characters have a universal appeal. The dialogue he uses seems to have been gleaned by different selection of common conversation and common occurrences. Realistic portrayal of characters. In Shakespeare's characterization, we find a realistic and convincing portrayal of human nature. Shakespeare does not depict persons of either fabulous excellence or unexampled depravity. In his plays, Shakespeare has shown human nature not only as it acts in real solutions, but as it would be found in situations which may never arise. Next, Renaissance, Humanism and Shakespeare. Renaissance humanism refers to the ideals of cultural, social and educational reforms undertaken by scholars, artists and political leaders in European countries during the 14th and 15th centuries. Renaissance humanism developed in response to the increasingly outdated and limited ideals of medieval scholasticism that had pervaded the Europe throughout the previous several centuries. Renaissance humanism, which was practiced in particular by members of clergy, was credited during the Renaissance with allowing for a greater emancipation of the individual. Throughout his plays, Shakespeare regularly demonstrates and celebrates the ideals and ideas of Renaissance humanism, often even in his tragic plays, presenting characters that embody the principles and ideals of Renaissance humanism, are people of tremendous self-knowledge and wit that are capable of self-expression and the practice of individual freedom. Much ado about nothing is one of the work of Shakespeare. By Shakespeare also reflects some of the key themes underpinning Renaissance humanism, which involved concepts of focus on human beings and their potential as the idea of perfect beauty. In this, Shakespeare is very much like Montaigne, whose essays are explicitly designed as forays into naturalist psychology. Shakespeare gives us a panoramic perspective on the human mind, an all-inclusive accounting, as if he were aiming for a kind of completeness. No one can accuse Shakespeare of blinkeredness, of narrowness of vision. His dramas are inner with much of the momentous and contained psychodramas stirring within the souls of the characters. Treatment of nature in Shakespeare's sonnets. Generally, in English literature, sonnets mean, we can see Shakespeare had 154 sonnets he wrote. Each sonnet contains 14 lines. Generally, Telugu it is called Padya. In Telugu there will be 4, rare case 5 something will be there. But in English, William Shakespeare used all the sonnets, each 14 lines. Shakespeare's sonnets revolved around the themes of love and friendship, and in most of the sonnets, nature provides a background either by supplying the images or by showing the objective correlative for them in his comedies and tragedies. Shakespeare showed his deep interest in the working of the natural world. One example, King Lear, or As You Like It, or A Midsummer Night's Dream. Everywhere, the world of nature features prominently. The sonnets of Shakespeare attains depicting a psychological perspectives of human beings, caught in the web of romance, friendship, jealousy, and the other motives. Nature plays an important role in the sonnets by supplying the backdrop or the psychodrama of our feelings. One of many interesting in Shakespeare's sonnet in the nature imagery. Nature's loveliness and plenitude attracted Shakespeare more than her violent or tempestuous aspects. In various sonnets, Shakespeare refers to the morning beauty of the nature and the rosy of colors spread on the earth and on the clouds. A few examples. Now, I would like to recite the sonnets according to my voice. Let us see and enjoy. Low in the Orient, when the gracious light lifts off his burning hand, each under eye, those who mistook his new appearing sign, serving with looks his sacred majesty. In his 7th sonnet, This is one of the important one. Another 29th sonnet. Like to the lark at break of day rising, from sullen earth sings him at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love, remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. Another sonnet 33. Full many a glorious morning have I seen, flatter the mountain tops with sovereign eye, kissing with golden face the meadows green, gilding pale streams with heavenly alchemy. Shakespeare skillfully relates the description of nature to his theme. For example, in Sonnet 7, which I read it previously, he uses the example of morning glory in order to persuade his friend to get married. His argument runs thus: people gaze at the sun and worship its glory when it rises in the morning. They still worship its splendor when it is noontime and it has reached the highest point in the sky. But nobody bothers about the sun when it is setting. Likewise, the poet's friend will be ignored or forgotten after his death, unless he has a son to perpetuate his name. Another aspect of nature that attracts Shakespeare is evanescence of the beauty of flowers. The rose, the violet, the lily is constantly referred to both for their incalculate beauty and for their short-livedness. Shakespeare sees the mutability of human existence reflected in the transience of these flowers. The natural world is in his way closely integrated into the texture of the poet's thought. In Sonnet 12, for example, he talks about the passage of time and the decline of all things. Now you can listen and enjoy the Sonnet 12. When I behold the violet past prime, and sable curves all silver over with wine, when lofty trees I see barren of leaves, which from heat did canopy the hay, and summer's green all girded up in the sheaves. Another reference to nature comes in Sonnet 18, where the poet compares his friend's beauty with the summer's day and finds the former lovely and more temperate. See Sonnet 18th. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds to shake the darling buds of May, and summer's leaves hath all too short a day. Nature sometimes becomes a medicine of the poet's hyperbolic praise of the friend. In Sonnet 28, for example, the poet tries to flatter the day by saying that it is bright by virtue of his friend's presence, even when there are clouds in the sky. The clouds come back in Sonnet 33, which is one of the passionate sonnets in the cycle. The seasons attract Shakespeare for attention in some of the sonnets. Among the seasons, the spring and the winter are often presented as antithetical and antagonistic. In Sonnet 98, the spring season is given color of grief because the poet was absent from his friend. Now let us see Sonnet 98. From you have I been offsets in the spring, when proud pied April, dressed in all his trim, had put a spirit of youth in everything, that heavy Saturn loved and lived with him. Yet neither the songs of birds nor the sweet smell of different flowers with their many colors could put the poet in a mood of joy or stimulate him, nor did he feel any surprise to see the witness of the lily. With the friend away from the poet, it still seemed winter to the poet, even though it was actually spring. Winter figures prominently in Sonnet 73, where the poet describes a natural scene with a kind of accuracy that reminds us of Shelley's Ode to the West Wind. The beautiful work of Shelley is Ode to the West Wind. Let us see 73 sonnet of Shakespeare. The time of year thou mayst in me behold, when aloe leaves soar, none of you do hang upon those boughs which shakes against the cold, bare ruined coils, where late the sweet birds sang. The poet's condition may be compared to his literature work in the winter scene of desolation. In this scene, the desolate picture of desolation becomes a corollary of Shakespeare's own old age, when one by one all his abilities will leave him like the autumnal leaves. Shakespeare's sonnets are interesting to us for their varied appeal to our aesthetic sense. Sringara Paramaina. The nature world with its flowers and foliage, the sun and the stars, the revolution of time and the cycle of seasons come alive in the sonnets of Shakespeare. Most famous poems by William Shakespeare is widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language. Though he is the most renowned for his plays, Shakespeare's poetry also remains to be popular. He wrote sonnets throughout his career for a private readership. He also wrote two long narrative poems which were published in 1590s and a few other verses. His collection of 154 sonnets was first published in 1609. Almost all the sonnets follow the structure of the quatrains or four-line stanzas following by a final couplet. The beginning of the third quatrain at times introduces an unexpected sharp thematic turn, the violate the themes. The couplet usually summarizes the theme of the poem or introduces a fresh new look at the time. This form is known Shakespearean sonnet, not because he was the first to use it, but because he became its most famous practitioner. Know more about the poetry of Shakespeare through his most famous poems, including his renowned sonnets. The Rape of Lucrece, published in 1594. Lucretia was an ancient Roman woman who was raped by king's son and committed suicide. The incident led to an anti-monarchist rebellion and thus played a part in the transition of ancient Rome from monarchy to a republic in late 6th century BC. The Rape of Lucrece is a 1855 lines tragic narration poem about the rape of Lucretia by the king's son. It is extremely rich in poetic images, fancies and metaphors. Metaphor means Rupaka Alankara in Sanskrit, and is one of the Shakespeare's earliest and most famous poems. See, in that also quotation. Now let us see the quotation. When their hearts were to this adviser due, they did conclude to murdered Lucrece, to show her bleeding body thorough, and so to publish tokens full of offence, which being done with speedy diligence, the Romans plausibly did give consent. The Phoenix and the Turtle, published 1601. Okay? One of the greatest work of him. The Phoenix and the Turtle is an allegorical poem, perhaps about the death of ideal love. Some critics see it as a poem about relationship between truth and beauty. The poem describes a funeral arranged for the deceased phoenix and turtle dove, who are symbols of perfection and of devoted love, respectively. It is one of the most obscure works ever written, and there continues to be speculations about its meaning. It has been thought to allude to various things, including the extinction of the Tudor monarchy, and the phoenix being Elizabeth I, and the turtle dove representing her lover, the second Earl of Essex. Except, truth may seem but cannot be, beauty brag but it's not seen, truth and beauty buried be. Alternative title: A Woman's Faith with Nature's Own Hand Painted. It also published in 1609. Sonnets 1 to 126 of Shakespeare collections of 154 sonnets are addressed to an unnamed young man who is now referred to as fair youth, while the sonnets 127 to 154 are known as the dark lady sequence, as they are addressed to the woman who appears to be a brunette. Sonnet 20 presents the fair youth as master mistress of the poet's passion. The speaker proclaims that his beloved possesses a woman's physical attractiveness and the form of a man. Moreover, he is more faithful and less fickle than women are. Sonnet 20 remains one of the most controversial poems of Shakespeare for several reasons, including its sexual duality and its homoeroticism. Quotation: a woman's face with nature's own hand painted, as to thou the master, mistress of my passion. A woman's gentle heart, but not acquainted with shifting change, as is postponement's fashion. From fairest creatures we desire increase. Self-involved to consider procreation, he warns his beloved that his beauty will fade. Shakespeare ends the sonnet with the couplet in which he says his beloved to not deprive the world of his beauty. Sonnet 1 is important as it sets the tone for the entire collection and also the first mini sequence of 17 poems, which are referred to as procreation sonnets, as they each urge the young man to bear children. Another quotation: from fairest creatures we desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. But as the striper should by time decrease, his tender hair might bear his memory. That time of year thou mayst in me behold, Sonnet 73 focuses on the theme of old age and its effect on human beings. But Shakespeare uses a series of metaphors to characterize the nature of old age. In the first ballad, he likens it to the fading of light, cowling darkness, mean death, second self. And in the second ballad, he equates it to the fading of life like in late autumn. And in the last ballad, he compares it to the burning out of the fire. In the couplet, the speaker addresses his beloved, expresses gratitude for his adoration in spite of the physical deterioration of the speaker, and tells him, "To love that well which thou must live ever long." Sonnet 73 is regarded among Shakespeare's most beautifully crafted poems and is one of the most famous of his 154 sonnets. Another quotation. "In me thou seest the glowing of such fire, that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by, when in disgrace with fortune and men's eye." In the octave of Sonnet 29, the speaker is depressed due to social ostracism, my outcast state, and personal misfortune. What means outcast state or curse my fate? He also gives a vent, outlet, to his jealousy of those that are rich in hope and with friends possessed. The sestet, a rhythmic group of 6-line verse. A sestet means 6 line. Sonnet has 14 lines, no? Half of 7 lines are called sestet. It ends with the couplet, for example, "For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings." Sonnet 29 breaks away from traditional sonnets due to its different structure and because of the speaker, due to his lack of self-worth. He is unable to present a resolution in this sestet. Quotation. "When in disgrace with fortune and man's wise, I shall alone beweep my outcast state, and troubled if heaven with my embrace cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate. My witness's eyes are nothing like the sun." Sonnet 130 satirizes the concept of ideal beauty that was conventional of literature and art during that time. It compares the poet's ministers to a number of natural beauties, each time making a point that the beauty of his mistress is obviously inadequate for such comparisons. In the last couplet of the poem, Shakespeare states that still his beloved is as special as any beauty, from whom such financial comparisons are made artist. He writes, "And yet by heaven I think my love as rare, as may she believed with false compare." Sonnet 130 is renowned for mocking flowery, courtly sonnets. Let us see the sonnet. "I have seen roses, damask red and wine, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. This often quoted sonnet provides the definition of ideal love. In the first ballad, the speaker says that love is not changeable. In the second, he says that he is fixed like the North Star is to sailors. In the third, he says that it not a time's fool, that he does not change with time. And in the couplet, he attests to the certainty of his definition of love by saying, if this be error and upon me proved, I never right nor an man ever loved. Sonnet 116 is regarded among the finest in Shakespeare's entire sequence of 154 sonnets, and it is one of the most famous poems written all alone. Quotation: love's not time's foot, though rosy lips and cheeko, within this body's circles compass come. Love alters not with his brief horns and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of the doom. Shakespeare starts Sonnet 18th with a flattering question to be beloved: shall I compare you to summer's day? He goes on the list of some negative aspects of summer to establish in his beloved is better. In the last part of the poem, he states that the beauty of his beloved will never fade, as he will make an eternal. Through the words of this poem was very reminded, very good and attractive one. Sonnet 18 is the most famous poem written by William Shakespeare and among the most renounced sonnets ever written. Let us see one of the quotation. But the eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that where thou owest, nor shall death brag, thou wonders his little shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Shakespeare created human nature as it now exists, at least in some measures. So, enveloping has his influence on the culture been so ingrained, or his words and his characters, that we can not help but be shaped by his work. We are all, to some indefinite degree, Shakespeare's progeny, and if he is right that we are naturally theatrical creatures, it is entirely possible that his theatrical construction should come the basis of theatrical cells we project in daily life. You might, to put in crudely, become like a Hamlet simply by seeing Hamlet on stage. When I come to conclude, I like very much of the drama Hamlet. The senior Hamlet, after knowing the truth of death of his father, then he thinks deeply about the forthcoming consequence. He used a quote, even now everybody, to be or not to be, even Telugu, Manutaya Maraninchutaya. Such a famous quote can be used in every work according to the situation. Thus, Shakespeare can be treated as a poet, writer, playwright of the nature in the English literature. So, I am fortunate one to bring forth to you about such a legend, William Shakespeare. Now, I conclude my speech. Dear friends, so far I gave spiritual discourses so far. Today, first time, I want to introduce even literature of English through William Shakespeare. I hope that you can enjoy this nature beauty of William Shakespeare and his sonnets, and propagate as much as of your friends. By that way, I can go further with many contents to reach you in time. Thank you one and all. Please don't forget to subscribe by pressing the button bell, and also refer your friends from your Facebook groups. You can upload in your Facebooks, Twitter, any of your media, but don't forget to propagate maximum subscription, because then with enthusiasm, curiosity, I can go forward, and out of curiosity I can expand this till my last effort. Thank you one and all. Bye.